Welcome to another edition of Consensus Unreality. We've got another interview coming up for you with the great Mullany of Molasses Industries, musician, performer, picker. Oh God, I can't wait to talk about some picking. We're gonna pivot on this one.
Go pick?
Like American Pickers style.
What do you pick?
Whoa, Ben! Don't jump the shark here. Let's get the advertising in first.
What advertising?
If you're not a Patreon member, consider joining up on patreon.com/Consensus Unreality, where you get access to our full 5-year episode archive. Tons of exclusive episodes there. Ongoing exclusive episodes. What did we do last week, Ben? We just did a great one on the Skull Afterlife experiment.
Yeah, the afterlife. It was a very melancholy, or as some say, melancholy episode about death.
I think it was uplifting because it's affirming. Yeah.
I don't remember.
There is no
for
death.
A week. I feel insane.
The guy's crazy.
I'm probably getting close to getting to my own skull experience.
I'm gonna be contacting you on the other side.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got written content, Discord server, printed journals. It's all there. Patreon.com/Consensus Unreality. Okay, Will.
Hell yeah.
I'm gonna let you tell us about Molasses Industries before we get into it, because I feel like maybe the language that you would use to describe such a corporate entity might do a better job than me.
I've been doing this thing that's called Molasses Industries for I think the first thing I sold under this banner was in 2016. And that was just like a little run of handmade pedals. And before that, I was playing as Molasses, which was a name that a friend of mine came up with because it's my last name just butchered. No deeper meaning there at the time. But I guess I just started, working with electronics from a pretty novice and uneducated background. I was a musician and ended up meeting some folks through school that were doing this and kind of pointed me in the right direction. Started building synthesizers, pedals, other types of gear, experimenting primarily with different interfaces for this type of stuff. And and now it's my primary, I guess, artistic output is building things. The word industries was was and still is a joke because it is just me and has always just been me hand making everything, except for a small period in 2021 where I hired someone to build boxes. So it really is, it is a fake company that I have laundered hundreds of units through. But what else?
We love that. We support it. I mean, I think you're kind of like one of the wizards of that arena. Your stuff is very left field of what people who maybe are listening and not as exposed to, say, I don't know, experimental music or noise music or whatever. You might be imagining some sort of modular synthesizer, but this is not the case. Your stuff,
right? I guess I should have mentioned that it's
no.
all pretty out there in terms of like interface and sound and aesthetic, in terms of what if you're even a synth enthusiast, you probably aren't dealing with this kind of stuff all the time, even though there's plenty of other people who are doing kind of similar stuff who I was exposed to early on. But
Mm,
experimenting with the sound, also how you're interacting with the sound bodily and otherwise, and kind of subverting not traditional, just standard ideas about like control, I guess, has been my main thing about imbuing things with chaos or adversarial intent,
mm,
so to
mm.
speak.
Yeah, I like
Nice.
that. Yeah, I think that our listeners would love to check out your stuff too because it's so tactile. And I think that
Yeah.
people just like first getting into maybe messing around with experimental electronics would really enjoy that aspect of it. How hands on it is, and also like what you're talking about, the stochastic kind of generation of the instruments and the unpredictability. I think is something that's super enjoyable. So what were like some of those people that you're mentioning? Because when I think of that world, I certainly think of like circuit bending in the 2000s and Twig Harper and Nautical Almanac.
Hmm.
These splayed kind of junk consumer electronics opened up on a table and
Yeah.
just, cross wired together.
Um, I think my like first two reference points were entry points for me. Was Nick Collins.
Mm.
He's got a great book called Handmade Electronic Music, which is like in my eyes the like if you want to get into this, the only thing you need to read to start doing stuff. Uh, I'm not someone who's going to recommend like the Art of Electronics, which is like a more uh, higher level, like theoretical kind of. Well, it's not even, but it's like more engineering. Nick Collins is, first and foremost a musician, and you know, he starts out just right, hits the ground running with like, let's make some sound,
Mm.
and then go from there. And then the other guy, Reed Gazala, I still don't know. He wrote he's like the father of circuit bending, basically. Has a book and is still working in this, making stuff. He's the one that makes like these crazy looking like Casio keyboards with like looks like resin and like eyeballs all over them, but really like it was doing it so early on in like the early 70s. But those two, and then contemporary like Peter Blosser. There's a few others that I'll probably forget, but yeah, I mean it's like it's a weirdly dense field of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
left field synthesis, but yeah, it's uh everyone has their own little weird thing.
Mm.
I feel like mine, I'm less like if I had to position myself, I'm I'm less I'm less like a synthesis nerd than I am like an interface and like uh tactile, like that domain, like the embodied domain of things. I'm less like digging into like strange schematics for, producing the weird little sounds, and I'm more trying to think about things as like instruments, because that's what interests me. I like less some of the left field guys, like guys and girls, uh kind of build off like a modular framework
Right.
of like, you know a panel populated by jacks, knobs, etc. And I'm like, that is like among the least exciting things for me, is that. So
What do you want on a machine?
I mean, the things that I've built have been very touch, like capacitive and resisted touch based. So for example, some of them, actually most of these just simply have like the circuit board open to interference by your body, and that's like the primary way of playing is um actually I have one here.
Mm.
Um, so like on this one, you see this is actually a circuit board material.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, right.
And so
Looks cool.
that's the actual board just upside down. And this I came to after like this was like years of me reiterating the same circuit over and over again with different form factors until I had this. So it's two identical circuits that aren't electronically connected except via your body once
Mm.
you do that.
So awesome.
Oh.
Yeah, and we'll post a picture of that on the show.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
send you. But
I would have said horsepower.
what's that?
I would have said horsepower is what I want in a machine.
I
Horsepower.
want
Ben's, yeah. No, that's awesome. Do you think that like do you ever consider some sort of like inherent magical quality to electricity? I can think about this like I encountered this guy recently who he had this he's called the modern day Tesla, and I'm not going to be able to recall his name off the dome right now, but I talked about him in
I
a
thought you were going to
recent
say
episode.
Tesla.
Yeah. And but he had this
Elon Musk.
yeah, no, not yeah. He's called the modern day Tesla by like 150 people.
Oh, okay.
But he had this
Was
like
it Eric Dollard?
yes, Eric Dollard.
Yeah.
He had this incredible radio telemetry laboratory in maybe one of the biggest independent radio laboratories in the country. That was, I think, like seized for some reason by a private funder, or maybe there's some sort of conspiracy there. They claim, I'm not sure the details of that, but he also was like working to reconstruct or actually like get the integratron of George Van Tassel, who was a UFO contactee, get it running, which is this crazy architectural structure that's supposed to like rejuvenate and prolong human life. But anyway, this guy was like, very anti-digital and like really kind of like laying the hammer down on some sort of inherent evil quality to digital, whereas he was claiming that, analog or like that old way of electrical engineering, there's something inherently magical about it. And if you kind of look back at like 20th century occultism and stuff, the whole magnetism phenomena that was in books, and a lot of the like even like Marconi and Tesla with their early radio stuff, they thought they were getting transmissions from Mars. There's like old New York Times articles about Marconi thinking that he was receiving messages from Martians and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
They
So
were.
so do you have any you can just say no too, but
I think this is an area that I've dipped my toes into and then get distracted and go in different directions. I will say, like, I think there is something, maybe just, how do I, there is something strange going on with electricity at low voltage levels that I don't know. It's purely subjective, and like with yeah. I might have to pass on this question because I'm not it's not
no. It's a it's a curveball, but like
Interesting, yeah.
what do you think about like does does human bioelectricity like have anything to do with the way that like the touch would interface with
Yeah.
circuits and stuff?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I was trying to get at is like, oh, there's a weird thing that goes on psychologically when you're becoming part of like a circuit, and it's 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 interesting because you can kind of feel you're feeling, at least I do when I'm using one of these. I'm sort of feeling, you feel a little bit of electric shock, so you're like made aware of like that this is what your part in this system is, just like as a giant resistor capacitor.
Yeah.
um and it's really strange because it's like uh a lot of there's a lot of factors that go into it, to the point where like you're not it would be really hard to mathematically model it, and I don't. And that's that's kind of been the whole thrust of like why I'm still interested in electronics, is like I'm not an engineer, uh but the touch aspect kind of gives like a mystery to it,
Mm.
that it's like, build a circuit that works, and then, get it working, flip it over, and then see what happens when your body is just thrust into the fold, because it gets strange, and like I feel dumb for not even it makes you feel dumb that it's doing such unpredictable things once you put the touch aspect in.
Mm.
Yeah, it sounded like when you were describing it before, like you might have some kind of interest in like cybernetics or something. The way you use the word control,
Mm.
also,
Yeah,
is that like
definitely.
does that play into it and how, if so?
Yeah, for sure. I actually like I studied cognitive science. That was my major in school.
Oh
So
wow.
I'm like, I came maybe I should have mentioned that. I come
Yeah,
into
I'm just
this.
looking at this.
Oh wow. Look at that. Um, yeah, I mean a lot of these synths that I've built come from like systems thinking, and like thinking about feedback, and
Yeah,
you know, and feedback, and where the user comes into the equation. I guess there's this other synth that I built that was, it had two. I guess a lot of them have like competing. They have two separate elements that kind of uh, interact with each other. It was two identical circuits with a number of outputs that you could route the outputs of one into the other or itself, and then adjust the like dial it up or down. And it would just it's like I mean it's still really interesting to play with, even though I built it years ago, just because um once things are feeding back at a like a level of complexity, there's really no telling what's going to happen. um
Mm.
I don't know if that answers your question.
yeah, yeah,
It's
and also, yeah, like,
um
do you ever read any Heinz von Forster, the cybernetician? He has
no
that
I
book on music, which I have not read, but which, having read some of his lectures, which are super strange. It sounds like
Yeah,
exactly like, I don't know if he's talking about the kind of stuff you're talking about, but
I
he
haven't read
is,
that.
yeah, he's thinking of music
Yeah,
in that feedback kind of system. It's called Music by Computers.
Mm.
yeah.
Um, but
Yeah, I guess I do think a lot about like machines, technology, and humans, where we're at with that. I guess that's where a lot of the inspiration comes from. I I guess what I try to fight is this sort of like I don't know how to phrase it eloquently, but like this um like efficiency and ergonomics in
Mm.
like control systems. That's kind of what I feel like drives a lot of modular
Yeah.
synth culture is like this desire to have like an aircraft or airplane control board worth of like parameters that you have control over and that you're gonna perfectly dial everything in and you're just you're just a god over your over this massive piece of equipment and like
Huh.
full like you're getting like full resolution like you can dial every little thing can be adjusted and
Yeah.
I feel like I try to make systems that totally flip that to the point where it's actually making it more difficult for you to uh or it's imposing constraints on the user in ways that I think are artistically or creatively valuable.
Mm.
Right. Yeah, that's
Um
great.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
like the touch stuff is one aspect, the chaos stuff is another aspect, and then Um, the last one, which we haven't touched on, is the electrical power generation domain of
yeah.
what I've done. So, like, I'll just give a little rundown. I got interested in this because Peter Blosser has this whole like body of work called Solar Sounders, where he designed these circuits that are intended to be hooked up to a solar panel and a speaker. And he published these circuits on paper, on like paper circuits. So you print them out, you fold them over, and it gives you the little. It's like a circuit board that it just shows you which components to go where they could connect. And they're framed as like, and I mean, he didn't come up with this idea. But they're framed as like um, instruments that are totally bound to the sun, and um, they the actual functioning of the circuit changes with the amount of light. So you set it outside, and um, throughout the day, it'll get louder, play differently. If a cloud, a person, car goes in front of it, it'll change.
is there like a human element to it, or is it totally played by the environment?
It's played by the environment.
Yeah.
You can play them because I've built a bunch of these now, and you can play them, but it's totally the way he had it set up. They're meant to be. They're kind of the most similar to like a wind chime.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's the
I was
best
I was gonna say it reminded me of like
analogy.
Aeolian harp or
Alien harp,
whatever.
right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that idea that you have we've all become accustomed to like an unending flow of electricity into our houses that is doesn't change. It's just a flat bar at 120 volts, and we can rely on that. Just kind of flipping that on its head and thinking of electricity as like you know a scarce resource,
Mm.
and seeing where that leads you led me to uh I called it the generator organ, and it's a hand crank powered like synth. So it's got a handle on the side that you crank, and it generates the power that it needs to play in the moment that you're doing it. So when you stop, it stops, and it's got a speaker. It's got everything you need on board, totally off grid. Um, and the amount, the vigor with which you crank it is determined as volume, sometimes pitch at the lower voltages, and then like the filter sweep. So like crank it faster, it's like a classic like low pass Moog filter that's like wow. Like if you, I could pull it out instead of just making the sound with my mouth, but yeah, I don't know. That idea has kind of stuck with me for a long since like started thinking about this during COVID, uh, just about, the grid and,
Yeah.
what it
True.
looks like afterward, and like thinking about constraints on electrical power. And I have a whole notebook of like all these things I want to build that, different power generation modes, and, where that goes, but I haven't quite gotten to it
Mm.
yet.
Yeah, I like that analogy of the airplane console as well, because something something happened there with modular synthesis where it seems to reflect more consumption of like things. And I know that it is super convenient to have your like Lego set of like I want this here and this here, but at a certain point it doesn't reflect the history of electronic music as much, because if you look at fucking like the beginning of like, Princeton Columbia Electronic Music Lab and
Yeah,
the
totally.
Russian ANS synthesizer, the visual synthesis of Daphne Oram, or the BBC stuff, Music Concrete, even the Buchla is like the Buchla has a lot of like less control, and
Yeah.
a fucking tab of acid on it originally,
Yeah, yeah, that legendary story of the guy who ended up tripping while he was servicing a Buchla
Yeah.
because they dipped the whole PCB in LSD or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's crazy. I'm glad. I feel like a lot like this has been, it's fallen off or at least like the a chunk of the population that I regularly encounter has been thoroughly pilled on modular culture. But yeah, I had a realization where I used to work at the science museum here, and uh, there was a day where it was a big focus on trains at the science museum, and they have a model railroad day where the whole auditorium gets filled with these old dudes who bring their whole model railroad setups. And I had a realization that I was like, this is the type of person that builds a giant modular in their basement.
Yeah.
Not me. Not like the people I'm like that I look up to. This is like it's the same psychological like drive and desire to expand, and it's more like a tech thing than like a music thing, I think. Like adding more RAM to your computer, adding another ADSR to your modular. It's like kind
Yeah.
of that's the mentality, and it's just
It's, I mean,
it,
it's fine. I mean, I don't want to
no,
knock it too
I
much because, like,
no, you're
I'm
right.
sure that no, no, no. I mean, everything's valid, and I'm sure that I like a lot of music that comes from modular synthesis. And it's like everybody's got their hobbies. I'm going to buy 12 more books by 1940s UFO contactees that I probably won't read in my
Yeah,
lifetime. The
yeah,
bulk of it, but
Really? Which ones?
I'll read them. I'll read them all. Um, but there's always something. But it's certainly nice to have that pushback. I think I hate to use the word actually, but the disruption of that
sure.
convenience.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's just a useful thing to bounce off because it is it at least for a while it felt like it was the dominant
Yeah,
thing in that
I
area, and
agree.
now
Yeah.
it's less so, I think. But you know,
Have
Huh.
you? So I know that you've done some research in this a little bit because I commissioned you to. But have you done any research into like the paranormal world of electronics, like electronic voice phenomena or
um,
strange open radio type things, which is what what I'm specifically talking about. But
yeah,
I mean, we could even get into radionics because you were talking about low level electricity
yeah.
surges, and that's that whole world of alternative electric medicine.
I love
Hmm.
that stuff.
Yeah.
I actually it was on my to-do list from when you commissioned me. Uh, Last year was kind of crazy, and
Yeah,
it fell by the wayside.
yeah.
But yeah, it that's actually, God, that's funny to think about because come to think of it, in terms the electrical stimulation thing. So, uh, I ended up this is a total not related to what you're saying at all, but I was treating the neck pain that I was having with like a TENS unit I found in the trash.
Well,
The neck pain that ended up being a brain tumor. But and all my friends were very concerned about me using this thing because my like I was like I was like, it was like a party trick where I'd be making my jaw just like rattle
oh my god.
but it really like helped a lot.
Mm.
But after I you know found out what was actually going on, they all were referencing that TENS unit as like the cause.
That's awesome.
But no, I don't unfortunately have no no new data to report
Yeah.
after. I do want to get back to that because it was a pretty interesting. Um, I actually thought I might ask on pod how you've been enjoying your product.
I love it. I mean, I love it in multiple ways. I mean, what I could describe, I've talked about it on the show before, but I knew that you could achieve this design. Not that it was super complex or anything, but
Yeah.
I basically had two different ideas of different spirit communication devices. One of which was a gentleman named George Meek who had a society in Philadelphia that was like they had a whole publication, like a kind of newsletter thing. I think some kind of metaphysical in the name. I'm not conjuring it right now, but if you look up George Meek's Spiricom, it'll all come up. The device was called the Spiricom. It would basically, his whole concept was that if you sent 16 oscillators at certain frequencies through through radio and then received the signal back, it created a conduit for disembodied voices to manifest in that path. So we did a little bit of that with the oscillator device. We didn't actually have the radio transceiver in there, but then separately we had two open radio diodes, which is of Konstantin Radiv, who was an early pioneer of electronic voice phenomena. I always loved the radio stuff. I think like when I first started getting into or being intrigued by paranormal things when I was very young, I remember encountering this idea that when Nikolai Tesla basically invented and started experimenting with radio, it's attributed to Marconi, but it was Tesla like just didn't actually patent it, but he had already invented it.
Yeah.
But he said that he was like hearing all of these disembodied voices and stuff. And this was before radio broadcast, obviously. So, he could have been picking up the magnetosphere, which is a thing on very low frequency radios that can be tuned into and stuff. But I was always intrigued by that. So there's 2 of those as well. So yeah, I mean, I've used it as a musical instrument. I've also just on the last episode, I just kind of left the diodes recording, and kind of said into the room, if there's anything here that wants to come through. But electronic voice phenomena is interesting because there's a lot of filtering that goes on. I think like in most people's experimentation with it. However, if you watch the documentary about the Skull Foundation that we talked about on last week's episode on Patreon, which is like this massive 6-year study into mediumship using a bunch of different techniques, their EVPs are like crystal clear, which could either be suspect or you could be like, wow, this is insane. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I'm really enjoying it. I haven't necessarily heard anything that's like, wow, well, that's a clear voice,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I question like what my whole opinion of that whole thing is entirely
Right.
anyway, but yeah.
I have from the design process, messing around with it, tweaking it, similar kind of array of experiences where I think it's it a lot of what you hear speaks to like how dense the Earth is with signals now, and it's really hard to parse out what what you're hearing, and if it's there's always something you could chalk it up to, whether it's like phone or computer or like the other computer or the router. Maybe at the time of these experiments it was a less less dense world
Yeah.
of signals. But yeah, definitely interesting. I've been meaning to mess around with it again because I still have like the prototypes that I made for the diodes, but
Yeah, I'm curious to implement more like, I don't know, intention setting kind of ritualistic practices with it especially after watching this Skull Foundation thing, because they do some crazy stuff in there. Well, they'll have like a canister of film just sitting on the table during their mediumistic sessions.
Wow.
And then they'll get the film developed, and there's like these weird kaleidoscopic images with clear pictures of people and all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, to a degree, obviously, I believe in some level of all of that stuff. But I guess I'll have to just experiment with it more. But yeah, I mean, just as a musical instrument, I love it too, and I got to put it in my nice little wood box.
Oh yeah, the wood box.
Yeah, you were cracking up when I brought my leather handle out, and when I met you down in Richmond to get the box, and you're like, you brought the handle, and I was like, yeah, I did, dude.
I was laughing earlier today about how I did like when I like it was like an instructions unclear moment, or like just forgot and like drilled through the top when you wanted the lid to close, and then I ended up doing like a restoration. It was like it was like I was like, all right, let's match the paint, get a patina, but it turned out good. I think it still looks good from your photos I've seen.
Absolutely. has any kind of sound event occurred when you've been testing your own stuff that's surprised you, or you've been like, where did that come from? And
All the time.
yeah,
And that's like partly how I do it. um, Actually, probably mostly can be attributed to just like, oh, I must have just picked the wrong resistor. Because I am quite frequently like, if I have a design bolted down, I can do it much more automatically. But like if I'm designing stuff, I'm sort of like cutting things off, resoldering things, and you know,
yeah,
um, plus like the whole element of like running circuits, running components like below the power that they're rated for. So all sorts of mysterious stuff happens when you give Texas Instruments chips like 0.01 volt.
true. Has
But
anything ever given you a fright?
no. Maybe like fright that I'm gonna die from electrocution, but
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What's the worst you've been shocked?
oh, I know it was I was building a this was early on when I had like a work my workshop was in my bedroom and I was making an oscilloscope with a small CRT. And I don't know if you know this about like CRTs are essentially gigantic capacitors.
Mm.
So they can store a charge even after they're unplugged. And the big ones can kill you like instantly. Just like if it discharges through your body, it can kill you. Um, but this was a small one, and I didn't know that, so I was fiddling around with pliers and just froze for a second and popped, and but
Did you like
nothing too bad.
blast back into the wall like a
Yeah,
sort of
no,
90s
it
cartoon?
was more like my brain was aware that I was being shocked, but I couldn't move for a second.
Holy shit.
It's like because when your muscles clamp up
True,
and
yeah.
you can't. That's why when the high voltage switcher, when they're switching high voltage, they have the guy who's switching it and then another guy in the back with a giant like one of those like canes that like they pull the guy off the stage in vaudeville with, and
Mm.
in case he starts getting shocked, they pull him back because all the muscles like clamp up.
Damn,
But
that's wild.
yeah.
Do you ever make non-musical electronic stuff, or like, are you
Um
generally kind of tinkering with this stuff, or is it more specific?
I I occasionally I'll mess with something. Um, I got into making lamps for a second there.
Nice.
Um, using like it was using circuit board material as the shade because now that I got into designing, so I get them all fabricated uh overseas. um and uh you can do a lot with like the transparency layers because like like a two-sided circuit board is like one, two, three, four, five, six different like overlapping layers of like copper,
Yeah.
paint, this and that. So you can do a lot with like uh how light goes through that.
Right.
And then apart from that, not really. It's
Mm.
all been sound. Sound is really forgiving in
Huh.
the zone of electronics.
Yeah. Yeah.
True.
Everything else starts getting like even video, like you mess something up, no signal,
Yeah, yeah.
It's like sound really like you gotta really screw something up bad. Uh to, that's why we have all this experimental music is broken equipment.
Right, right. Somebody needs to get out there and fix it.
I know. Well, that's another thing I don't do.
True.
I haven't. People always ask that. It's like, do you fix stuff? And I have to say no because that's just I
Yeah.
haven't.
Well, why waste the time, you know?
I know.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think about UFOs? Because I saw this book that you and your brother, were just scribbling derogatory
Oh,
things into
yeah.
a classic
Wait, did I
book of
show you that?
your brother did a classic book of ufology, and you guys just
What book was
scribbled derogatory things in there.
Did he tell you like the whole story of that?
A little bit, yeah.
Should I tell? I should. So it was Adamski?
No,
Right?
it's it's the
No.
black and white cover one, Ben. You had it recently. It's like UFO crash somewhere, not Exeter.
Oh,
It's like kind of a rare one.
Oh,
uh,
contact at
Pascagonia or something.
you're
Pascagoula.
defacing a copy of
I
Pascagoula.
know. I saw
Okay,
that. I was like, that's
okay.
a rare one.
That's
That's like $150 book these
I know
days.
that's what when I found it, I gave it to him for like Christmas or something. Um and he was like, this is fetching rare book prices. But we did it when he was probably under 10 years old and I was not much older, but it was inspired by my dad and his brother defacing in a very similar crude manner a Adamski book.
What the heck? What are you doing down there?
Just taking a crap on the contactees.
But yeah, no, it's like the whole like front to back. It's annotated with like little drawings and
Oh, that's cool.
like expanding the drawings to like one of the like saucer images. They drew like a guy to the side holding like a fishing rod with the little like to show like, oh, it's a hoax. But I don't know. I've come around. I mean, obviously from
Since
that,
you were 10.
yeah, I've been reading ufology.
You know that
since I was 10.
that kind of behavior put the United States Navy in a tailspin in the 1950s because some guy who didn't graduate from high school living in the middle of Pennsylvania wrote a bunch of stuff in Morris K. Jessup's
Whoa.
which UFO book, Ben?
The case for the UFO.
Yeah,
Or
in
case-
Morris
yeah.
K. Jessup was like an engineer, or at least studied engineering, and he
Yeah.
was like a pretty trying to like write soundly about the UFO phenomena, and this crazy dude Carl Allen just wrote a bunch of like nutty stuff in it and sent it to the Navy, and then the Navy was like,
So funny.
I think put Morris K. Jessup on a list. It was like, what the hell's this, man? And then Jessup,
Yeah.
I shouldn't even be laughing because it's actually quite a tragic story. Morris K. Jessup, I don't know how much of this had to do with it, but the guy killed himself.
Damn.
This is the
Wow, you
whole.
think he killed himself?
Oh shit! Well, now we're getting deep in the well here, but this is the
I feel like
whole
we've had the same conversation.
lore of the Philadelphia experiment, which is the idea that
Oh yeah.
the Navy had sent a ship called the USS Eldridge. I know, what a name too, right? Fucking the Eldridge. They sent it back in time, and these guys got stuck in the middle of the hull. There's a movie or two about it. Anyway, yeah, that's what that kind of behavior gets, fella. Throwing the Navy in a tailspin.
Yeah.
So you guys proud of yourselves?
Yeah. I guess going to your original question, I'm
After my rant.
yeah, I'm in, embarrassingly low education level on all of it. It's like slowly increasing as time goes on.
I don't think there's a high educate. I think that the
No,
government.
I know that's what it comes down to. It's like
They've said it all years ago. They
Yeah.
were like, something's fucking going on. I don't know what the
It
hell it is.
does not seem like much has changed.
Yeah.
Well, it's more like having an encyclopedic knowledge of the course of events, but there's no
Yeah, yeah.
wisdom really
That's
attached to it.
Right.
Like
yeah.
you can know like the finite details of the whole thing, top to bottom, and you really don't know all that much more than somebody who knows nothing.
I do
Yeah.
love though that like a half a century ago, the official report from our government is like, yeah, no, there's something going on. We don't know what it is. And then like some years later, they're like, wait, they didn't see that? All right, let's fuck with them. We're just gonna like mess with them now, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. It is real super interesting, and like the recent bout of New Jersey drones.
Yeah.
Like
Jersey drones.
the Jersey drones
They should
was
change
like
a sports team to that.
it was interesting from like almost less of like the actual phenomena and more enlightening about like how information permutes through
Yeah.
online networks. To me was like seeing how just videos getting dredged up by the algorithm that were like years old.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that was
you
awesome.
know, it's just like once I realized stuff like that was happening, I was like, you know, I can't follow this. This is too much. But
Yeah, it's a minefield. I mean, the information is beautifully weaponized too. I mean, that's why you see people like Peter Thiel getting in there now, because
sure,
if you're able to control the psychosis of that information stream,
yeah,
you're able to like do a lot of
All right.
a lot of things.
That's our only sponsor, Dave. Come on, let's not badge.
You got the deal box?
I shouldn't say that. That
Damn.
would be awesome if we did. Shit, man.
Yeah, I'm manifesting.
Get in touch. Nah, we're a little too small time for Teal, I think, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yep. But that's cool. So
crazy.
you've never seen a UFO?
No, we thought we did once, but it ended up it was before either of us knew. We were out in New Mexico at Chaco Canyon. This is like
That's a
2021.
famous visitation site.
Dark sky park, no service, and saw, you know, string of lights. Ended up being Starlink.
Starlink, yeah.
Neither of us
I
saw
hate
it.
Starlink.
It looks cool.
It's so
but
annoying.
yeah, it's
it does
dumb.
look cool.
It
but
looks too cool for what it is.
Yeah.
we were genuinely trying to see something because a friend of ours had a crazy experience in the Gila near Gila National Forest, like southern, which is where we were staying, where they were in the forest and, you know, saw light floating.
Huh.
It moved away
New
and then
Mexico's beautiful.
moved away, and then they saw like one of those stealth bombers
triangle
shit.
thing?
right behind it.
Really?
So,
That's awesome.
That's what we were going off. That was in the front of our mind on that trip. And then seeing Starlink was just with no cell signal. And then we got back to cell signal. We're like Googling string of lights, and it was like immediately crushed our hopes. But
yeah,
maybe you did see something and they wiped it.
yeah, they replaced it with Starlink.
Yeah,
it's possible.
Maybe everybody's been seeing stuff, and Starlink isn't even real.
Yeah,
Makes you think.
A little bit.
Where is that? What forest are you talking about?
Gila, Gila National Forest. It's like in the southern. I don't know. I have family in Albuquerque, so we visited them and then drove down.
That's where I went when I was out there. Albuquerque's sick.
I love New Mexico. It is like truly like another planet.
Yeah.
And then we spent some time there and then drove north.
Has anything ever like
Hands area and through Los Alamos. So visited all the spooky spots.
Nice. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's deeply entrenched in the lore.
yeah.
It's
Yep.
it's interesting how all that Jack Parsons stuff still kind of creeps all the way back in. Like you're never able to wash that. Like as much as the conversation tries to get sterile and about like adversarial uh, hypersonics and whatever
Yeah.
the UAP conversation is actually about, like it gets freaky immediately.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's some new UFO whistleblower. I don't. These guys are blowing whistles. They're just like dudes, saying shit. But he
That's
was
all it
like,
ever is.
yeah. I mean, but sometimes these guys are talking about actual things. But
Yeah, sure.
this guy was just like, he's tweeting at Elon, and then it popped, and it's about UFO disclosure. But then there's also like a Nokian uh, ciphers from like John Dee, the Elizabethan
Whoa.
medium and
Yeah.
scryer and all that business.
Yeah, it sounds like somebody got into the drug cabinet to me.
Somebody's been playing that Buchla.
Hey,
Somebody's been hitting
Good
those space
callback.
bongos a little too hard. That was a callback, folks.
that was a
Yeah.
callback.
So let's talk about picking, because I
Okay.
like picking. Ben
Okay.
is
I like
Ben
picking.
loves picking. We're talking about picking antiques, and I heard that Ficken said I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about some
Oh my God.
precognitive picking events that have happened
Oh.
between you two. You guys have like a psychic picking connection, or
It sometimes feels that way. I don't know. I don't know what I think about it because it's just, yeah, because okay, some backstory. We freak have frequented the same spots, flea markets, etc. for uh a few years at this point, and both have a we both have a affinity for you know alley surfing, so to speak.
Mhm.
That's kind of how I got into it to begin with. Was just the fun of seeing what people are throwing out. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. There have been a few times where uh, the like a certain synchronicity has been too strange to ignore, and I was trying to rehearse some of these before I got on here because to me, like talking about things syncing up in that way, when I hear someone talking about it, it's like a little bit more interesting than a dream. Like just a
Yeah.
little bit. It's a
No,
little bit.
I disagree. I think that it's more interesting because it actually happened, and if I think that like if you talk
Yeah.
about some of the specifics, people will know some of the objects that you're talking about and maybe the rarity of them, especially like the
Yeah.
Sure.
Bertoya chairs.
The Bertoya chair incident was like by far the strangest. What happened was this was during the big uh the big move out where people are emptying, their houses onto the street. And so me being like one of the main things I look for is furniture, like mid-century, etc. Interesting old furniture. Because I do some of the like roof finishing and selling it. Vicken calls me. He's approaching, a pile, and he's joking as he does about like because the pile he's approaching looks terrible. It looks bad, but he's going to investigate it anyway. He's joking like, "Yeah, I'm gonna find this and that, like I'm gonna." He does this thing where he kind of like just says things that he wants to happen as a joke. so that it kind of feels like it's like he's trying to get it to happen by
Yeah.
joking about it.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, and we're
Oh,
gonna
he's
find.
manifesting.
Yeah, he's manifesting through like a little like joke, but he says, yeah, I'm gonna find just a pile of these Bertoya chairs, and mind you, I'm on in my car on the phone driving to meet him, and he says I'm gonna get these Bertoya
And
chairs
Bertoya being
as a Bertoya being a really high
yeah.
end design object chairs from you. I mean, most people, if you saw the image, you'd recognize it as like, oh, that's that fancy chair I see sometimes. And I laugh, hang up. I am driving down Brooklyn Park right here, like less than a mile away from him, and I turn my head down an alley to the left, and I see three of these chairs, the Bertoya chairs that he like we're talking 30 seconds. And you don't see these.
Yeah, like how many do you think were made of like
Well, okay,
thousands?
the 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 want wah moment is that they were not real.
Okay. But
And
still.
they do make dupes, but even the dupes, like it's not like they're like tossing them out everywhere.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like I hadn't seen any. It's not a common thing you see.
That's kind of even
and
funnier. Yeah.
It is funny. It is funnier,
You
and
like tulpa it.
they were actually all broken. They were all broken except for one, which I gave to Ficken, and I think it's in his backyard.
That's awesome.
But then that night, I don't even know if I should say this, but like he was like, "You have to play the lottery. You have to." He's like, "We are going to win. We are going to win." And I was like, "We're gonna win. We're gonna win." And so I did. I did play, and yeah, obviously didn't win the lottery. But whenever something like that happens, it's yeah, it's always a Powerball time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear you. I mean, I do that. I do that myself, by the way. I'll be like, I think I got some precognition going right now.
The juices are flowing.
Yeah, the numbers on the back of this fortune cookie are speaking to me today,
Yep. Yeah, that's the one that feels significant enough to tell. But yeah, I mean, I will say, like, I think that there's, like, when you're in this realm of encountering, and I'm sure you guys have thought about this, encountering huge amounts of stuff that's been lived among and used and lived among. There's like you're digging into like where everything in our world dribbles down.
Yeah, it's charmed.
Right.
It's charmed and alive.
It is alive and charmed. It's also like it's a certain element of randomness that you don't get a lot elsewhere. That I think opens you up to some things. And I don't know. I'm not making any claim about what things those are. It just feels like there's something
I'll
goes
make the
on.
claim.
Make the claim.
Yeah,
I want to hear what
make the
you.
claim.
I actually am really interested to hear what you guys have to say.
This is
about
why
this
they pay
topic.
Ben the big bucks.
Yeah,
It's snake spirits.
Snakes?
It's evil snake spirits, man.
Yeah.
They're putting the chairs out.
Yeah, hobgoblins.
They did it. Yeah, no, I know what you mean though. It's even like the idea of like the library angel and like all this stuff of like these like weird intelligences that will kind of like guide you in a certain direction when you're around enough stuff. And I'm sure it applies just as much to junk as it does to books and just as much to furniture. Like I'm sure like all of these anytime I think the randomness has like an animating effect on it, or all of these lives intersecting has like kind of an animating effect as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, I haven't, but it's, I kind of, that's how I make my living, kind of. So I
Yeah.
think about it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very odd um to like sit back and think about some of the places that the line of work takes you. um
Yeah.
Yeah.
like into people's houses, you know.
That's the scariest part. Or like
Yeah.
not scary, but and I don't do like house calls that much, mostly, especially if like the person's still there, just for
Yeah,
it's weird.
Even, estate sales, it's the same
Estate
way.
estate
sales
sales.
are weird.
Yeah, estate sales I do pretty frequently. Um but it's really weird. It's very weird.
Yeah.
I,
And like
yeah.
sometimes like the company that's running an estate sale, you realize like their job is to hide the fact that someone just died from you.
Yes.
Like that's like their whole job is to make it feel like you're shopping
Yeah.
instead
I thought
of
you were
like
gonna say they killed the person.
yeah, yeah. But like you probably like
That's a
I'm sure
business model.
there's you've been to these like I think of them as like handwritten signed paper sale or estate
Yeah.
sales, where it's like it's not like there's no hiding it.
Yeah.
It's you're
Right.
It's a lump of clothes that have been ripped off their hangers
yeah
and thrown
no
onto a
exactly
bed.
exactly
Yeah, and the bed's unmade. And there's
Yeah.
like their toothbrush is still in a cup. Not good.
yeah
Woo. I
yeah
mean, yeah, I think it's kind of, I don't know if it's creepy or not, but it is kind of cool to like you get a window into other people's lives, which is kind of
Yeah.
fascinating. And then, of course, when you find that weird, obscure, esoteric thing that you're actually interested in there, then it's
yeah
some sort of weird connection, that's like, what? Wait, what? I want to know more about this person. And I'm sure
Right.
a European could hear that and revel
yeah
at our consumerist society and the depth of
yeah
our objects. But
The
it is
European.
it's coming in with the heat. But I mean, there is like there's some like Baudrillard deciphering there to go on, where it's like, oh, the spirituality of these products.
yeah
But at the same time, like I do recall, like I was at an estate sale last year, going through, and then there's a whole room of like paranormal and UFO paperbacks, and I'm like, whoa,
yeah
holy shit! Like, who was this person? What, what were they about? I was so
yeah
curious.
yeah I mean that's why this stuff is interesting to me. It's because it's like I mean I don't really go I don't really go to thrift stores anymore. But that's another instance where like the presentation of like they're far enough removed from the source of the original owner that like they're stripped of like their context objects
Yeah.
are. It's like I'm I don't know. I do genuinely like enjoy uh you know that aspect where you're seeing uh you know the cycle of life and not life
Yeah.
non-life
Yeah.
You should try
what
B&Es,
what's that?
burglary.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, break in and be like, oh wow, look at this
Yeah.
couch.
Oh,
Need
amazing.
this
Yeah.
couch.
Jeez, is that John Keel's book over there? I love John Keel. I wonder what this sleeping guy is like.
Actually, circling back, I just remembered this. Circling back around, I actually a huge, actually sort of life-changing
Did you say a huge boon?
boom.
You've done burglary.
Okay. No burglary involved, but like a huge moment in electronics for me was from a pick. that this was 2019 or 2018 maybe. Um, our friend who runs a thrift store that I um called me because he knew I was interested in electronics and like building things that he had got a call of a clear out of a workshop in a warehouse nearby, and he sends me some pictures, and I actually dropped what I was doing to go because it was like a synth builder's workshop
Wow.
being cleared out, or aspiring synth builder, I guess, and pedal circuit bender guy. Like, I don't know. It was, and we get there, and it's like it was like a hoarder scenario where we were pulling speak and spells in Casio SK1s out of like just crevices
Damn.
where it was just like stuffed in. Like, I think we pulled 7 speak and spells. Um and all these other, old synths. But I ended up with like an entire van load of like components, um, which I didn't have the money for at the time. And I still have them all in organized bins with this guy's handwriting on it. And I later learned this guy had passed away. And that's why his
Mm.
stuff is being cleared out. But it was another like moment of like dark, like, having to sift through this stuff in a, you know, pretty dark context.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that for you, it was probably dark. That's kind of
yeah.
your hero's journey there. But I think anybody else hearing that is like, well, that stuff was meant for you. So that's kind of an amazing
Well, I mean,
serendipitous
that's what I've
synchronicity.
come that's what I've come to since then is like our other friend who received some of the blessings, who does this, was he talks about that day as like a curse,
Hmm.
like that we you know we inherited a curse from this guy.
Right, right.
But I don't feel that way, and I see, I see his handiwork all the time, all these like kids organization bins that he organized resistors and pots and LEDs, and his handwriting. He was kind of a crazy guy. Like, his
You know who it
workshop was.
was?
No, I
Oh,
That's
still don't
crazy.
know. But
Damn.
um, but yeah, no, I mean, I do feel like it was a very lucky occurrence that we ended up there, because it was on its way to the dumpster. Like, all of that stuff would have been in the dumpster. But you know, it's yeah.
That's an amazing story. You hearing this, Baudrillard? S- Stick it.
I don't think he's alive,
Nah, I know. He's gone. Yeah.
but I don't think he's dead either.
R.I.P. Well, that's awesome. That was a good, little wrap up there. I feel like there. Oh, you know what
That's a
it is?
callback.
That is a callback. Yeah. Another one. I got to send you in this skull documentary, or in one of the books rather. Through the psychic photography that they were doing, they claim to have gotten a communicate. This is completely serious. They claim to have gotten a communication from Thomas Edison, and Thomas Edison transmitted a schematic for an electric device that would
Whoa.
allow hypothetically anybody to communicate with other realms, not just deceased people, but like other entities and stuff as well. And I do believe like the Skull Foundation actually hasn't released the bulk of their data from this huge survey. But I do believe that they actually did release in one of the books an image of this schematic. So we got to get you that and get your analysis.
Definitely.
See if we could make a spirit phone, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Send me that. I need
I want to talk to Elvis.
Yeah. What's up, King? Cool. So give us some links for molasses.
Mollassesindustries.com is the website. I'm really bad at updating it. But if you want to stay in more frequent touch, molasses_industries on Instagram. And then I have an email list, which I'm trying to build up so that I am less dependent on the platforms.
Oh yeah.
For income.
Mm.
Are you taking commissions right now?
I'm open for business.
Good to know.
Open for business. I haven't been doing commissions as much just because it's hard. It's hard to if it's an idea that I can quickly triage and decide, okay, this is possible with what I'm set up to do, or this is going to be too much. I can do it, but it's usually like it's usually an instance where it would cost too much to charge whoever to make it. But you know, if it's a project I'm interested in, I'll definitely chat. And I'm always down to chat.
Nice. Ben, what are you going to get? A wand?
I already have a wand.
Yeah.
I love the radionics machine. It doesn't do anything, but you turn it on.
Yeah.
A good vibes generator, if you will.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever seen those like wish machines?
Yeah. Something like that.
Grant's wishes. Oh, fuck. All right, we're ending the episode. But yeah, check out Molasses Industries. Truly wonderful stuff. And greatly affordable too. I mean, the stuff like you can buy some of these devices, some of them for under $100, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So check it out. I mean,
even with tariffs.
Even
where
with
are you gonna
tariffs? Where are you gonna get a
even
deal
with the tariff
like this? Cool. All right. Thanks for listening. As always.
Thank you.
Ben and I will be back next week. Catch you next.